Hello, and welcome back to the Level 1 show. Today we're doing robot and nonsense stories.
Friday nonsense.
Just random links about those two things.
I want to bring up what just happened, but then
If you do, then there's no reason for us to redo it.
I'm trying to think, like, how can I reference that word without saying the word? And then the most obvious way to do it is like, oh, I can't do that. Because I'm basing it on the first letter. Anyway, this one was a weird sort. And I thought about it when I was building up the tabs, and I was just like, whatever, I'm going to leave it in here. It's not a robot.
It's fine.
It's interesting, though.
MIT engineers developed stickers that can see inside the body, and whose stamp-sized ultrasound adhesives produce clear images of the heart, lungs, and other internal organs. It's like they're little reflective thingies that change their thing.
So this is not, I think the video shows you what they'll look like. The big thing here is not putting this in a sticker or, like a small form factor, but it's like if you ever see an ultrasound, they're constantly moving it. They figured that out.
Oh, cool.
You don't have to constantly move it. So you can strap these all over your body, do like a stress test or something, run on a treadmill, and they can actually watch your organs respond to. Yeah. It's another thing that I'm a little worried about the insurance companies. They'll be like, hey, if you want to keep your policy, you're going to have to wear this 3 days a week.
Oh, right.
I was reading
In your pod.
I was reading a story that a doctor had written about. He's like, please, politicians, get insurance companies under control. I do, I'm some kind of a doctor, and I do this kind of thing. And I had a patient that needs rotator cuff surgery, and the insurance denied it and said, we want to do physical therapy instead. And it's like, I'm a doctor.
You're an insurance adjuster.
Yeah, in what world does that make sense?
Third quarter world.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about social media last time, and we teased TikTok's fakery. Now, we all know that the algorithm is manipulative, and we know that the Chinese Communist Party is basically in control. But what if you found out that your favorite TikTok star was not real?
Forever young and beautiful, scandal-free, the rise of South Korea's virtual influencers, as run by ad agencies. Truly the darkest timeline.
I think we've done a similar story to this before, but this just kind of fleshes it out more. All the images of the influences here are fake. Some of them are a little more obviously fake than others. But the thing is like, there's been so many filters for so many years on social media on how people process their own photos that you just think, oh, it's a processed photo of a real person. They got to show the food that she ate, even though she's a robot.
She's a robot. She doesn't eat. Oh, hilarious. This is Lucy. Lucy does not exist. Well, I mean, she exists, but she's not a real person.
She's the creation of something terrible and dark.
She's not made of meat.
I don't know that this has really spread to the U.S. yet, though it's apparently very common in Korea, but it's only a matter of time, right?
You would think, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a big Theranos vibe in this picture.
It looks a little uncanny valley because she's not got any pores, but again, with all the filtering people do, would you even think, that's probably fake?
And the makeup.
Yeah.
So they talk about how some of these, like I think this picture is just straight digitally created. Whereas if they do something where there's they're modeling clothing, they're deep faking it in real time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so weird.
Great.
Imagine being the girl who, like, you're Lucy, but you're not Lucy's face.
Yeah, you're just the body double.
Well, I guess body doubles are a thing already, right?
Yeah. It's weird, though, because a lot of times when I hear people talk about marketing in, like, the U.S., especially for younger generations, people don't like things that are inauthentic. But here in Korea, it's like, no, we have totally fake influencers.
Now, the other thing about this is the fact that Lucy does interact.
Yeah.
So if you were to follow Lucy and you're like, oh my God, Lucy, I want to be just like you. I love you. Lucy will write back to you. And one girl described how she had a whole relationship with Lucy before she found out.
That she was fake, yeah.
And then she found out and she was like, well, I'm okay with it because Lucy's a good friend.
We're living in the darkest timeline. What a strange thing.
I wonder how much of that is AI responding to you and how much of it is the army at the marketing agency.
Probably the army at the marketing agency. Because, again, the AI, if you train it with bad data, it could say something, scandalous, and that's what they're trying to avoid. So they have a whole team of people probably copywriting for her.
I bet the top 10% on OnlyFans has a similar kind of setup.
Probably.
There's probably, fake OnlyFans girls, maybe.
Well, no, not the fake. I mean, they might be, but
Yeah.
even if they're not fake, they're not the one talking to
Oh,
you.
yeah, they've got a team who handles that.
Right. They're not the ones doing the ratings. I'm not going to say what kind of rating, but that's one of my favorite things in the world that exists. And so IKEA, Krista, you're a big IKEA fan.
Yeah, I like IKEA, all right.
Lego, more and more, a lot of these international companies are putting out instructions with no text at all. I've
Yeah.
gotten some electronic devices.
Yeah, because it's the international market, you don't want to translate it.
Why make 5 different kinds of user manuals when you can just put pictures? But what about the robots?
MIT Autodesk developed AI that can figure out confusing Lego instructions.
So it reads the instructions and says, "Oh, this is what I would do." It's like, "Oh, that's correct."
Right now, it can only suggest to try and, it's like trying to tell you how to do it. It's like, no, do this, put this here. But they're working on a version that can actually
Put it
get
together
in there,
for you.
yeah.
The darkest timeline is when you get a Lego set and you have to scan a QR code to watch something assemble it in 3D on your phone, or like assemble it in augmented reality where like the pieces lift up and come together.
Or you got the banana sticker that confuses the AI, and
Yeah.
then the robot spends the next 20 minutes inserting wooden dowels.
or meanwhile, the QR code's running on your phone, but it's decided that you may or may not be pregnant, and it has to report that to your local attorney general. Or scan your phone for CSAM as you put Legos together.
Well, we talked last week about the leap second and the controversy that we're coming up with that. Big tech companies want to do away with it, but maybe more alarming is why it's such a confusing thing, because it's actually not consistent.
Midnight comes a fraction of a second sooner as Earth spins faster. What's going on with the shortest day since the 1960s?
Things are changing.
Does it have something to do with all the water that we're damming up?
Maybe. But definitely when you move stuff around a lot on the surface of the Earth, or more importantly at the core, which we're not doing, but who knows what's going on down there, right? It can change the timing.
There was a whole movie about that called The Core. I watched that in a science class in high school, and I was like, even as a high schooler, I was like, this is the most unscientific movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, that just means that the teacher didn't want to actually do anything.
Yeah. There's a whole hollow section in The Core, according to that movie.
My cat died. We're going to watch Frozen. Okay, thanks, teacher.
Hollow Earth has been a big conspiracy thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe because of that movie.
I think everybody always expects, for whatever reason, for there to be dinosaurs in there.
Not in that version. In that version, it was like just a crystal cavern, and they had to restart the core because the Earth had stopped spinning.
Maybe the dinosaur service technicians had died. I bet that's what caused it.
That's where the Disney Imagineers go to retire. Is keep the animatronic dinosaurs alive.
That's where they're going to put Johnny Depp when they're done with him. Well, the moon, we want to live there. We've got plans to set up a base, although it's not on the moon. The base is going to be orbiting the moon. But what if we could live on the moon? Would you want to? I'm not sure that I would, considering that if you wanted to take a stroll outside into the sun, you'd burst into flame.
Scientists discover over 200 quote-unquote Goldilocks zones on the moon where astronauts could survive. Spoiler alert, it's underground caverns and lava tubes that have an open dome at the top, probably because of an asteroid collision or something like that. And so it gets a little bit of sunlight, but also shade. It's a pretty consistent 63 degrees.
Yeah, I think if you go down into the tube, it's going to get too cold. But if you can stay right in this little dark spot, which is always dark, it's always shaded, it's actually, what was it, like 64 degrees?
It's perfect temperatures.
It's great, yeah. Oh, what a great sleeping
minus,
weather
the oxygen lack and all that.
And then there's a moonquake, and that whole shelf falls down, and the cleansing power of the sun burns through you. It's kind of like, basically, we'd be moon vampires.
It's like, oh, I've got to go service the solar panel that's just outside the shadow. It's like,
Let me layer myself in asbestos before I head over there.
asbestos, the wonder material.
Well, the big mystery was, where is the Long March rocket going to fall? We now know the answer.
It's unclear at the moment if any pieces of the 25-ton Long March 5 will hit in populated areas. It's going to crash into the Earth over the Indian Ocean. Maybe in a populated area.
It did.
It already did.
Okay.
They're just not sure because maybe nobody reported it yet.
Okay.
But it's done. It hit the Indian Ocean, and
just
China-
throw some more space junk out there. Who cares?
yeah, China didn't really say anything about not doing that again.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh yeah,
Just
that's fine.
pollute the ocean.
It was
It's not a
fine this
problem.
time. I mean, it could have landed in India where it would have, there's a lot of people there. That would have been bad.
We were talking earlier about puff pieces. I think this is a puff piece written by a black hole.
You know what? The black holes, they heard about the black hole police, and they got together and they're like, we got to get ahead of this.
Yeah.
So they hired a PR firm.
And here we are. At long last, mathematical proof that black holes are stable. Nice try. Look at it spaghettifying everything in this picture. Also, unrelated to anything, Quantum Magazine has probably one of the best layouts I've ever seen.
Great image here, too. What is this from?
It's got a very tiny caption.
Science Source. Oh, they should NFT that. So, yeah, it turns out that we always wondered how black holes stayed together, stayed coherent, didn't just blow apart with all that energy. There was no mathematical model to prove it. Now there is. Congratulations.
It's a big black hole.
I like to think that there was a black hole Karen who once she heard it's like, unstable? You can't call me unstable. She's like, she was on the phone.
I'll show you.
She was on the phone with the James Webb Telescope for the rest of the day, screaming.
It's like, I just want to take pictures, dude.
And speaking of the James Webb Telescope, it gives us some incredible images, but as laymen, when we look at them, we can't really do much else than being like, oh, yeah, that is impressive. Oh, that's exactly what I thought the galaxy looked like. But that's lies. We don't know. We don't know anything. And this guy was just having fun with us.
French scientist Etienne Klein apologizes after his quote-unquote James Webb Telescope image is revealed to be a slice of chorizo.
It looks like a sun, doesn't it?
It really does.
It looks like a star. That's so good.
I love that, like, you can just do that and people wouldn't know. They're just like, yeah, okay.
He said he did it as a way to sort of poke fun at that kind of thing. Of people maybe getting into this stuff and talking a lot of crap on Twitter when they're not really an astronomer.
Right.
And he is. God, it makes me think of that pineapple chorizo chicken dish at the one Mexican place. I haven't had that in like 2 years. It's so good. He should have added some pineapple to his tweet. Well, this is something that's been studied for, how long have we had consoles in our homes?
20, 30 years.
40 years? A little
40,
less than
probably
40, probably
yeah.
like 35.
And then television before that. So remember, it's like watching too much television is bad for you.
It'll rot your brain. I think we've only ever had this outcome from every study, right? But it doesn't matter because they keep rolling out the same complaints over and over.
Game time has no link with levels of well-being, a study finds.
I'd say doom scrolling probably has a much higher, like, worse thing
Probably,
for your well-being compared to playing a video game, which is fun.
This article also doesn't talk about other things like surgeons that play video games tend to do surgery faster and more accurately.
Now, they did concede that there was probably a horizon over which you could go that could start causing problems, but they estimated that to be 10 hours per day.
Ooh.
Although there's probably Twitch streamers that are doing that, right?
Yeah.
Twitch streamers and like kids on summer break, I think, are probably the two demographics there.
Oh yeah, when I was a kid on summer break, there were definitely some, I got a new video game, let's just sleep and play the video game. And
For
that's
sure, there's some World of Warcraft players
Yeah.
that are getting that far. Interesting. Now, when I heard TWINKcoin, I thought of something else.
Yeah. Who in marketing was like, let's call it that?
Honestly, I think it would have been smarter to make it a crossover between the two, right? Because that's popular now. That's a hot thing to make your product.
Hostess drops a crypto-themed snack called TWINKcoin as Bitcoin tanks. It's a Twinkie, but it's hockey puck shaped, and it's called TWINKcoin, which is probably not the best name.
So basically, they took the dye and the mold for where they make the little hockey puck shaped chocolate cakes.
Yeah, and just did the Twinkie
They
mix.
switched it over to the yellow cake and now TWINKcoin. Although the $sign makes it look like STWINKcoin.
Yeah. There's a whole marketing campaign around this was maybe ill-advised.
If you want to go on shoppopwild.com, you can get a 10-pack for $3.49.
I think if they wanted to boost their sales, they should have said they're just not going to make Twinkies anymore. I remember there being pandemonium. I was working at a grocery store when they announced that, and it ended up being a rumor, but no one knew that at first. And we had Twinkies were sold out, and we had people coming up to the registers all the time being like, do you have any more Twinkies in the back?
Remember the eBay?
Yeah.
People were buying Twinkies on eBay, paying hundreds of dollars for
This is
them.
the last box of Twinkies.
They should do that again if
It
they
was
want
insane.
to make money.
How often can you do that, though?
Before people realize, they're not getting rid of the Twinkies.
Twinkies are a crazy snack because they taste okay, but I would never go out of my way for one.
No, but some people love them.
I think Twinkies would be better without so much filling, but just a tiny, tiny amount of filling.
And just more cake. Yeah.
Every cake product, I feel they violate with non-cake.
Yeah.
There's always a fondant or a fudge or an icing. Come on, don't throw so much sugar at me. I'll eat your poison.
How do you feel about cosmic brownies?
No,
Cosmic versus nut brownies.
Nuts are better.
Wow.
Because
I don't know about that.
More sugar on top of that, we just don't need it. And the other thing I don't like about those brownies is whatever that layer on top is.
Do they ever switch
fudge.
back to walnut, or is it still like cheap nuts?
I don't buy them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really try to stay away from that stuff. If I'm going to make a bad food decision like that, I'm going to go a step above Little Debbie or Hostess or whatever it is. Well, spider stories, the joke is nuke it from orbit, kill it with fire, right? But maybe don't always follow that advice.
Man sets forest ablaze after trying to light spider on fire. Wyoming officials cautioned against that. When the story was written, it was 800 and some acres of forest has perished. Probably a lot of spiders in that.
I can understand when there are spiders in your home, in your car, in your place of work. But when they're just in the woods?
You've come to the woods to get into nature and you're like, screw this spider in particular.
That's their home.
How dare these spiders?
Also, like
live in the woods.
If you're hiking, there's a joke, like the person who goes first in the morning, it's like they get extra protein because they're eating all the spider webs on the path. Like, how do you get out in the woods and not have that experience and just set fire to everything? Why that particular spider?
You just take your blowtorch with you.
And just, well, then he's like, wow, I've started a forest fire.
Prophylactically, every 20 yards, just blast a stream of fire, just in case.
In case there's a spider anywhere in the radius.
Well, you know where you might be able to find a flamethrower where it would be a more healthy place to use it? Diablo Immortal. Because it seems like you can buy pretty much anything in Diablo Immortal. You can have any power that you want if you're willing to pay for it, but it's lonely at the top.
Diablo Immortal player spends $100,000 and can't find anybody to play with. Why? Because it's so grindy. No one can get to that level without paying that much money.
It's not fun when there's a level mismatch like that.
And, well, he thinks it is.
No,
and because his MMR is basically perfect. He's never been beaten because he did this on day one. So now he's pissed off because he's Twitch streaming and he wants content. But the MMR is like, there's nobody that can touch you. Anybody we put in a game with you is going to have a terrible experience. And now he's like, I should get a refund.
Oh, and what? Blizzard has no incentive to ever fix that either because they got their money.
And I bet that there's a small, I don't even know how small it is, but there's a portion of people who read that and they're like, I got to spend that. I got to get there. I got to be number one. They said he queued for, what, like 8 hours?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I started, oh, sorry.
I bet it was tough to come up with content during that 8 hours, right? Because you got to talk.
Overwatch is that way anymore. They don't have 8-hour queues, but it's like 10 minutes to get into a match sometimes. And so people will play other games. They'll have their queue time up in the corner, then they like play another game in another window.
Let's play Factorio while we're playing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I pause Factorio.
Wow. We are a spoiled group of people, aren't we?
Yeah.
And think of another way that we're spoiled. Lungs.
I started to add this story, and then I saw you'd already added it.
We're just using our lungs. Now, you might think to yourself that this works a certain way. It doesn't work that way. The way that it works is it sounds very unpleasant.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody would want this.
Humans could breathe out of their buttholes, like pigs. That's the part that I got stuck on. Like pigs. Was this the known property of pigs?
What?
So we've done this to pigs. This is what they're telling us there.
And trials will begin this year. So it turns out that through the lining of your intestine, oxygen can be absorbed from a fluid.
I love, what a great stock photo to pick as well.
Pretty great, huh? Research.
So this might be good if you're having your lungs worked on and, need to stay oxygenated.
I can't read the attribution.
Just in general.
But it is a stock photo. Yes, actually, I've just been making up everything.
Everything. It's amazing we've gotten this far without you being able to read.
I just look at the pictures and assume. But yeah, you would have to have water being continually run through, in and out of your guts in order for that to work. I can't imagine that big. Of course, if you're in a coma,
maybe it wouldn't matter.
But if I'm that far gone, just let me go.
Or surgery, or you just need to buy time or something.
It's like something an episode of House MD would cover. Like, make them breathe through their butthole.
Oh, as the way to fix them, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a horrible infection in their lungs, but we can't. And it's like, oh, I've got an idea.
But he would have to put together some ad hoc
Yeah.
like pump to do that
Yeah.
with hospital equipment, and then it's like get somebody's like contact lens solution to
Right.
like,
It's like, how's our insurance isn't going to cover this? And it's
Replace his blood with bleach.
and I believe, Krista, you'll be excited for this. I think this might be the high watermark for the superhero film era.
I don't know. It feels like they just keep making more. So
It might be time because I don't think the Doctor Strange movie did great, right? The last one.
I don't even keep up. There's so many.
So maybe we'll switch to something else.
Oh, Batgirl movie will reportedly never be released because it was just that bad. This is also DC though, and not Marvel.
well, they thought it would tank the studio thought it would tank superhero movies so badly
Wow.
that it would negatively impact the brand and other superhero movies.
Now, the people who made the movie have come out and said, no, it's not about that. It's because of the downturn and the changes within the companies, and it's not really that bad.
Likely story.
Yeah.
They say that it should come out because the world should see it.
Just like the Snyder Cut.
The costume looks terrible.
Yeah, the costume and the lighting doesn't look good. I think a lot of times costumes look really bad because of the way that they're lit. Like, where's the light coming from in that scene?
But it doesn't look like it fits her. It looks like that's somebody else's batsuit.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's
that's part
also
of the
a thing.
story?
With the Rings of Power costumes I've been looking at, it's like no one in that universe knows anything about like princess seams or like darts. Like everything is just a bag with a belt on it. Which is
Well,
weird.
But no, I was going to say maybe they could argue that, it's like lower technology, but they were famous for their
Yeah.
stuff.
And also like if you're a high class person, you have access to labor and materials where you could get something fitted to you. So it's weird.
Maybe
Weird.
that was the hot thing during that time.
For every people group, regardless of whether they lived on the same continent,
Well, you're chasing the trend.
that you somehow know about on another continent.
The hottest look in Middle Earth was like a little bit of a muffin top, but a loose shirt to hide it.
That's kind of what it looks like. That's what people are like. How come these actors look so fat? I'm like, the actors aren't fat. It's because they're wearing these giant, oversized clothing, and then they just put a belt so it looks like they got a gut.
But they're fat with a PH.
THICC.
Maybe they're going for that clothing trope to indicate it's like that's how all dwarves dress.
Except they do it with every culture, regardless of where they are. That's why it's weird.
Maybe it's like you're not allowed to have a tighter belly than the king or the queen.
Again,
So
they live on different continents, some of these people. It's like, why are they all dressed the same?
because they put it on TikTok.
They're probably doing that so they can sell costumes on Amazon. They're like, let's not do something that's too fitted or too weird
right.
because we want to resell.
We know our audience is mostly in the U.S., and they might be a little bigger.
Well, I was just thinking, again, just how can we make merch sales? Let's just resell the costumes on Amazon. We can't have them fitted because then it won't fit everybody.
Well, let's talk about social media stars. And most of the time you see social media stars and they seem completely planned and orchestrated and meticulously perfected. Like they went into this hoping to be a social media star, or they started to catch on and then that became a brand. But sometimes they're just an idiot doing
The universe takes care of the idiot.
just having fun. Well, I wouldn't know if, when I say idiot, I mean just somebody who they don't have an agenda. They're just enjoying themselves and sharing it with the world. And people don't like that.
Tuneless Bangladeshi social media star was grilled by police.
So he sings badly. That's his thing. Terrible singer. And he chooses popular Bangladeshi songs in order to sing about. And he even does like a little bit of production value now.
Look at that.
Is he laundering money? Like what? Yeah.
But he took some classics from, that were famous Bangladeshi songs that were really, really well respected. And he did those poorly, and the cops showed up and they were like, no.
Straight to jail.
Those are cultural icons. You will not be doing them poorly.
Wow.
I think he is undeterred, though.
Well, good for him.
Here we
Everyone
are.
should have a right to sing poorly.
Well, we outsourced that to the Recording Industry Association of America. So if he were doing that in America, they would be claiming copyright on his videos.
We already did this on the first episode, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That was the Spain story.
Last week we talked about cats, and it is probably responsible to keep your cat at home. I know it might be a little weird to keep them indoors, but the alternative is murder.
Bylaw fines Victoria cat $150 for trespassing. That's better than America. You know, if somebody has their pet consistently in your yard, you can trap. Yeah, you can trap them.
Oh, my neighbors have threatened to shoot.
Look how wild this fence paint is. What's going on there?
It's artistic.
So these people went on vacation, and they came home, and it turns out that this cat had breached the neighbor's lawn twice and harassed chickens.
My neighbor Rue is always on a leash when she goes outside, but there's a dog down the street that just runs wild. And my neighbor said that dog was fixing to meet Jesus if it came in his yard and harassed his chickens one more time.
What about your 7 outside cats?
They're not mine. I did actually call this week to see if I could get them into a free clinic. And they were like, oh, we've got a waiting list. You'll have to put it on.
How long?
Who knows? Could be weeks. So I'm actually looking to see if I can get low cost spay and neuter, at least for the mom and dad.
Yeah, you've probably...
It'll be like $40 a pop, though.
Well, you got like maybe... When's sexual maturity? It's really fast.
It's fast. Yeah, that's why I'm like, I need to get the mom and dad redone. There's a low cost clinic, but again, it's still like $40. They're not technically my cats, but I don't want more cats running around my property.
I think that's your destiny.
To have 7 cats? They do like to hang out on our patio.
70.
Yeah, way more than 7.
I don't want that many. Actually, I think winter will probably thin them out when the coyotes come around, but...
Nah, they'll snuggle up on your porch. You'll build them a nice little...
We found a dead cat in the yard before, so I'm pretty sure coyote will get them.
Oh, wow.
Well, hopefully not. But.
Maybe you can adopt some coyotes.
We just have a whole ecosystem out there.
Oh, I don't have a lead in for that. I was going to do something about finding things on your property, but I think they knew this was already here. This was I can't imagine that they thought this would work, and yet it did. People used it. Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe people like this kind of thing.
Airbnb apologizes for slave cabin for rent in Mississippi. It was advertised as a slave cabin. It's like, here's a slave cabin for $18.27. It's basically a change. You want to stay here? And people did.
Now, the argument that these people who were against it said was, it's not the same. You've put door hinges and weather stripping.
A working bathroom.
Yeah, and all that stuff that the slaves didn't have. So it's not like you're having the slave experience, if that's what you were going for.
So it should have been described as a former slave cottage turned into something habitable.
It's glamping.
Yeah, it should have been described as a TikTok landmine, basically. Like, that's why you go there, right? I thought this was a great headline because it's funny that this was... You know, I go to various places where you find these kinds of headlines where it's like, Not the Onion is a big one.
Yeah.
Offbeat, that kind of thing, where it's silly. You read it and it's silly. It's like, oh, those people are so silly. We did this exact same thing last week.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing as what we did last week in this country. When I mean we, I mean our government.
Indian rupee has not collapsed. It's just finding its own course. The financial manager, Nirmala Sitharaman.
We got to give it room to breathe. You know what? This is like, what do you call it when the Amish people go out?
Rumspringa.
That the Indian rupee is just trying to find itself.
It's on a through hike of the Appalachian Trail for 6 months.
It's very carefully avoided the flooding.
It's gonna get out there. It's gonna do some ecstasy, see what that's like. You know,
eat some trail food
or some fast food.
No,
I bet they never get fast food, right?
No. So the way that AT works is like, because every few days you'll hit a town. So what you do is you eat crap on the trail and then you go into town and you get town food.
I'm talking about the Amish.
Oh, the town. Yeah, I don't know about how the Amish do it.
I learned so many new words.
How do you say this word?
I don't know. I thought that was a person. But here's the thing. Isn't that a...
Yeah.
Why? Is that because...
You flush out.
I thought that's what that was.
Yeah.
But to make that the character?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That is... I mean, there's nothing wrong
California's
with it.
California's a different world.
It's wild.
The headline is Douchie's Guide to a Dore Alley Without Fear of Monkeypox. I had no idea what a Dore Alley was.
Well, it's a festival. It's a kink and fetish festival in San Francisco. Now you might think, I don't want to be insensitive here, but you might think right now, as of this moment, don't do the kink festival.
Yeah, maybe let that cool off for a few months.
Like the disease that's raging through the country could be exacerbated. But they say, no, don't worry about that. Instead, just look at these little douche guys.
I gave up going to Cracker Barrel for what seems like less of a threat than monkeypox.
It's our culture.
And so they're showing you in these graphics what you should be doing to get away with this now. Of course, a full body leather suit.
Ugh. And in the heat in California.
That's very effective, though, against protecting against monkeypox.
Now, I'm guessing that this was also something you've never heard of before. I don't know what this is.
I'm pretty sure that this is the only thing that you're wearing is the little piggy nose.
That doesn't seem like that would work with monkeypox at all. Although it would be easy to see somebody who might have the lesions on them.
Mm.
Then we got this guy. He's the dungeon. I get this one. I know what this means. But I don't know why that's good for us during these uncertain times.
I mean, we don't know a whole lot about it yet, but like, can't monkeypox spread even if you're not fully symptomatic? Like, you might not even have a lot of pustules or whatever.
The kids are getting it, and they've apparently had no contact like that. So somehow there's
thinking that it might be respiratory again, and it's like, come on.
Oh, this one's got a Band-Aid on its arm. See, he's been vaccinated.
Right. I think they said the smallpox vaccine is effective against it.
That is wild. I did not put together that that's what that was the first time I looked at that.
I thought it was like an avocado.
Yeah, like a piece of fruit. That's what was in my mind.
It's not.
So, yeah, they're still doing that. Now, here's the thing about it. They have declared a public emergency.
Right, I saw that.
And they're saying that people should start wearing masks again. Mm. But they will not cancel this.
But, yeah, see, that should probably be canceled. I mean,
just seems
just wait till it mutates again, and then we get some horrible version of it.
Here's an idea. What if we just make them wait 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Just 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I love animal stories. However, this one turned out to be somewhat sad.
Oh.
Escaped giant tortoise halts Cambridge to Norwich trains. I thought he survived. He just had a hole in his shell.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah.
He survived.
His spine is exposed. Yeah.
I bet if we interviewed 10 turtles and said, how do you feel if you had a hole in your shell? 10 out of 10 would say, that's negative.
Because they don't talk.
They do make little noises when they have sex. You ever heard that?
Oh, I've heard that. Well, I haven't heard it myself, but I've heard you say that.
It's like a squeaky noise.
Oh.
They seem to be enjoying it quite a bit.
They'll also make the same noise if you've given them apples or like a strawberry before, and then it's like, oh look, I've got a strawberry for you, and it's just barely out of reach. There's a video where it's making almost the same noise, and it's like, no, I need the strawberry.
You think they get the same endorphins
Probably.
From both?
I have little box turtles that show up in my yard, and so sometimes I'll have to move them if my husband's mowing. And I always put them back in the woods, and I'll give them like a little piece of fruit, and they don't take it. They're not happy with it.
They don't trust you.
They're like, you picked me up. I'm not happy.
They're like, we've read the online reviews from your home.
0 out of 10 got picked up and moved and not run over by the lawnmower.
Terrifying dog encounter. So this is an expo in Hong Kong. Now, of course, China is really struggling with, I think they locked Wuhan down again, right?
Yeah.
Ugh.
So they're really struggling. Of course, they have the zero policy, which means it's insane. But they decided to go ahead and have the food festival. However, one big difference.
Organizers insist on no eating at the food expo. So the food expos, like these are food preparers, restaurateurs. It's like, oh, let's sample the food. You know, what can we order from the pre-production thing? And they're just like, no food samples. Meanwhile, the San Francisco thing is okay.
Well, totally different countries, but yes.
Yeah, we are. We do have a few more freedoms. For now.
For now.
For now, we're doing a little better. Oh, no, I hit the microphone. And Tim Hortons, it's wild because it seems like when we think of Tim Hortons, all we think of is Canada. Right?
Yeah.
But apparently the Canadian people have a real love-hate relationship with Tim Hortons.
Mostly love until the data scandal. This is all about the data scandal.
It seemed like they love it but like they know it's horrible, but it's just because it's theirs. They love it, and then more and more, Tim just keeps pushing them, just keeps stepping on them over and over.
Tim Hortons offers a coffee and a donut as a proposed settlement in a class action lawsuit. So this is Tim Hortons have been collecting the data surreptitiously, and it's sort of not going well. And so they said, hey, why don't we just give everybody a coffee and a donut? We collected your data for a very long time without your consent. That was our bad. Oops. Have a coffee and a donut. That seems reasonable. That's worse than the Equifax punishment.
And the excuse they had was hilarious, but at the same time, when you think about it, you're kind of like, well, yeah, because they said, well, listen, do the math. You are not going to get anything from this class action. It's all going to go to the lawyers. It's going to be cut up amongst, millions and millions of you. You might get like $1 or $2, but you're going to have to jump through all these hoops. You know what? Just come in and get the donut. You can have the donut.
And there's part, again, that's like, that's insulting, but also
it's more than I would get otherwise.
Yeah.
So, doesn't Krispy Kreme give you free donuts every time the red light comes on?
Mm-hmm. You can go in and say, hey, can I try one of the free donuts? Or can I try it? And they're like, here you go.
I don't think they lose a lot of money on that.
It might be like a quarter donut. Sometimes they slice it up and they don't give you a whole donut.
Oh, wow.
But it's just, for you to try what it's like when it's fresh. And it turns out they're really good when they're fresh.
Well, Tim's going to give you the whole donut and a cup of coffee. So
it's probably an old donut.
It's a little moldy.
They go back in the back and get it.
It's like, oh, this is one of the free donuts. Oh,
it's just like a rock.
Yeah.
Dip it in the coffee. Yeah.
Yesterday's donuts. Great.
And man, I've been battling some ants this week in my house.
Really?
I've got some really good ant poison, but it's carpenter ant poison, and now I got the little tiny black ants. I got to get a different poison. I think I've controlled them. Boy, do they love Toast's slow feeder bowl. Like, that's where they love to stay. And but at least I don't have them in my electronics.
Ants invade Kindle and even buy books. Watch the video. So this lady left her Kindle and a stack of other books, and the ants apparently found it and liked something on it, and were triggering the touch sensor, and
wow.
they managed to buy a book.
How do you explain that in the tech, like when you submit your support ticket? Ants bought this book. I don't want it.
She did refund. I think she did say those. I don't know if they reported on whether or not she got it back, but how annoying would that be if you're reading and the ant is inside?
Oh.
Yeah.
You could not pay attention to it.
Right.
I had that happen on an LCD panel once. There was an insect crawling around between the panel and the backlight. And so you can't, like, if you squish it, then it's going to be there forever. You just have to hope that it leaves.
Lured out. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think her ants were walking around on the inside of the conductive glass. Yeah. So again, nothing you can do about that. I guess if you put it in a vacuum for a day or two.
Maybe put like sugar water outside of it?
You'd have dead ants.
But what if it dies inside the screen? You'll never get it out.
Yeah. That's tough.
Very, very bad.
That sounds like maybe you have to get rid of your Kindle.
And our final story is the Cobra effect. Almost perfectly. This is a perfect reproduction of the unintended consequence of stupid government.
Man claims to have sold a dozen quote-unquote ghost guns at a Houston gun buyback event. Really, it wasn't ghost guns. It was just 3D printed parts that probably weren't even serviceable. But the buyback was so broad that there's like, hey, we'll accept this. So, $2 of plastic, and they'll give him $50. So he did that.
It was $3.
$3.
But the thing about the ghost guns is, like, that's the drum they've been banging. Like, that's the fear that they're putting into it. It's like, oh my God, we got to get these off the streets. And he was like, okay, I got so many for you. Now they have announced since then, they will no longer purchase ghost guns in the gun buyback program.
Because they're not real.
Only serialized guns can go into the buyback program. Even though ghost guns are terrifying, and we just introduced legislation to ban them altogether, they're not worth $50 to get off the street.
Huh. That's interesting.
Did he get to keep his money?
Yeah. $3,100.
Good for him.
Yeah. But they said, well, we didn't explicitly say we wouldn't take those, even though they explicitly said they wanted those.
Yeah.
And but from now on, we will not be honoring that.
Yeah. You think maybe they had just never seen those, and then once they got them, it was like, oh, we're upset about this?
I do
but
think
they can't accept that?
I think that's entirely possible. But again, they wrote legislation based on it, and yet they have no understanding of what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's par for the course. But
Yeah, this is more of just a win for people who hate government bureaucracy. Like,
No, I think ultimately this will be a loss because I think they'll go after. There are, like, you can make your own firearm, and that's fine right now. But I think ultimately that's not going to be fine.
But this hurts that dogma.
Yeah.
Because if they were that dangerous, getting them off the street for $50 would be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Because we spend more than that just for the posters, every time. One thing that made me very hopeful about this country is the comment section on that YouTube video about the ATF guy. Because you would think there'd be some astroturfers in there being like, oh, no. Well, if they're in there, they're buried so far down because every comment is like, please do this to every ATF agent. Please, the ATF is already criminal. Just treat them like that at all times. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, that comment section.
Some of the cases that have resulted from that kind of stuff, if you read the pretrial transcript stuff, the prosecutors have to work really hard to try to keep that kind of thing out of the evidence because they're afraid it'll taint the jury. So they really, they're worried about the jury not convicting if they find out that shenanigans like that went into arresting the person in the first place.
I watched a little bit of the Alex Jones trial, which is pretty entertaining. But that's pretty much a slam dunk in my opinion. Defamation, to say somebody's child that they're lying about their dead child for attention. I mean, that's defamation. Come on. I don't know exactly what he said, but it seems like they've got him. And they caught him in a bunch of lies. But he had kind of crapped on the jury on his show because he's still doing his show every day.
which is insane.
Yeah, I mean, the man is out of his mind. There's no question now. That is not an act.
I used to think, because he would say such crazy stuff.
Right.
And I was like, there's no way.
No, he's just insane. He's genuine, whatever it is. But then they had the section where the jurors are allowed to write handwritten questions for Alex and the judge. And then the judge went through and read those questions. And at that point, I was like, yeah, our society's doomed. Alex,
Tell me more about the potbelly goblins.
You know what, AJ? You might have been wrong about Sandy Hook, but you were on the nose about these jurors. They are some bumpkins.
Which is bold coming from us.
Yeah.
I also like that, the DOD lost all the text messages, but apparently they're going to have his.
Oh, my God. So, according to the plaintiff lawyer, Alex's legal team accidentally sent the entire phone.
I saw that.
Oh, my God. The emails are amazing.
But the lawyer on the opposing side for that was really brilliant about it because there are provisions if you do that. So the lawyer didn't notice their mistake, and he didn't say anything for the specified period of time. So he's like, all right, it's fair game. You didn't say you accidentally sent this incorrectly.
Which worked out for Alex a bit because, and you got to give him credit, he thought on his feet because once the guy revealed that to him, he was like, yeah, well, I gave him the full phone. That's what I wanted them to give you. Which was not true at all, I don't think. But
or maybe he doesn't understand. I don't know. Maybe he's just that insane.
The crazy thing about Alex Jones is he's constantly fidgeting and talking and he can't stop himself from doing things, but he also can't stop himself from sprinkling in little white lies. And they'll call him out on it almost immediately. And his big thing to go back to is we're reporting on other people saying that. We didn't say that. Reporting on other people saying that. He just keeps going back to that. And his coughing, he's got that gruff voice.
He's got a permanent frog in his throat.
He claims his larynx is damaged or whatever, but every time the questioning gets real hot, he'll start coughing in such an annoying way. It's hilarious. You got to watch that trial. Not as good as Depp, but it's not bad.
You're deep cut into weird trials now.
All
anyway,
right, we'll see you next week.